Introduction. The Salazar lineage has played an extensive role in shaping global and domestic policies through financial, military, and political means. From Antonio Salazar's fascist Estado Novo regime in Portugal to the influence of figures such as Ken Salazar in the United States, this family has continuously benefited from power structures that suppress rightful heirs to sovereignty and justice. This report specifically examines how the modern descendants of this lineage, Peter Salazar, and his wife, Shiva Salazar, play a direct role in attacking the heir of King George. Their actions, which align with biblical narratives of seduction and betrayal, mirror the long-standing pattern of suppression used by the Salazar family, both historically and presently, within institutions, such as the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, and the Department of the Interior. Separator. The Salazar regime and its influence on U.S. government institutions. 1. The Department of Defense, DoD, and military-industrial ties. The U.S. Department of Defense has historically collaborated with authoritarian figures who align with Western military interests, including Antonio Salazar's Portugal. During the Cold War, Portugal's strategic location and access to African resources made it a key military partner. Salazar's role in NATO. Antonio Salazar ensured Portugal's alignment with NATO, solidifying Western military cooperation while suppressing opposition within his own regime. Defense contractors and U.S. military presence in Portugal. The U.S. used military bases in the Azores for strategic control, benefiting the military-industrial complex while reinforcing authoritarian governance. Ken Salazar's indirect role, through policies that facilitated corporate land control. Ken Salazar's tenure as Secretary of the Interior benefited defense contractors who exploit land and resources under the guise of national security. 2. The Department of Justice, DOJ, and paramilitary influence. The Salazar lineage has historically relied on secret police forces, military contractors, and intelligence agencies to maintain control. The Estado Novo's secret police, PIDE, function much like modern U.S. intelligence agencies in their use of surveillance, counterinsurgency tactics, and targeted political suppression. Parallels between PIDE and U.S. intelligence agencies. The DOJ, in collaboration with intelligence agencies, has adopted similar tactics under counterterrorism laws to monitor and suppress opposition. COINTELPRO and modern surveillance programs. The U.S. government has historically used counterintelligence programs to silence voices that challenge corporate and political elites, a tactic that aligns with Salazar's use of state power to control dissent. Peter Salazar's role, with direct ties to military and paramilitary networks. Peter Salazar benefits from the same institutions historically used by his family lineage to suppress opposition. 3. The Department of the Interior, DOI, and economic control. Ken Salazar, as Secretary of the Interior under President Obama, oversaw policies that strengthened federal control over land, natural resources, and indigenous governance structures. These policies parallel the Salazar regime's economic and territorial control strategies in Portugal and its colonies. Native American trust land manipulation. The DOI has historically managed land and natural resources under policies that disproportionately benefit corporate elites while limiting sovereignty rights. Energy and resource exploitation. Salazar's policies benefited multinational corporations involved in oil, gas, and mining operations, reinforcing economic dependency structures akin to Salazar-era colonial policies. Modern parallels to colonial governance. The economic structures that suppressed African and indigenous populations under Portuguese rule now manifest in U.S. policies that continue to restrict rightful land claims. Separator. The role of Peter and Shiva Salazar, a biblical betrayal. The attacks on the heir of King George by Peter and Shiva Salazar reflect an ancient biblical pattern of betrayal, particularly as seen in the stories of Peter's denial of Christ and Bathsheba's role in David's downfall. 1. Peter Salazar, the modern parallel to Peter in Scripture. In Matthew chapter 16 verse 23, Jesus rebukes Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Peter Salazar's role as an obstacle. Just as Peter attempted to divert Christ from his mission, Peter Salazar serves as an obstacle to the heir of King George, ensuring that rightful claims to sovereignty and inheritance are suppressed. State-sponsored suppression. The collaboration between Peter Salazar and military intelligence operations mirrors the betrayal of Christ by state-aligned actors. 2. Shiva Salazar, a modern Bathsheba in a false marriage. Shiva Salazar's role mirrors that of Bathsheba, a woman whose relationship with King David involved seduction, deception, and political manipulation. However, Shiva is married to Peter Salazar, tying her to the Salazar name and its history of control and betrayal. Seduction and deception. Like Bathsheba's role in biblical history, Shiva Salazar's influence serves as a tool of misdirection, drawing the heir of King George into a compromised position. Marriage as a political tool. Her marriage to Peter Salazar symbolizes an alignment with historical forces that have always sought to undermine Christ's mission and the rightful heirs to sovereignty. The name Salazar as a mark of betrayal. The Salazar name carries a legacy of deception and control, linking its modern descendants directly to historical efforts to suppress and manipulate rightful claims to power. Separator. Conclusion. The Salazar legacy of control and suppression. The Salazar lineage has systematically embedded itself in global power structures. From Antonio Salazar's Estado Novo regime to modern figures like Ken, Peter, and Shiva Salazar. Their influence extends through military, financial, and legal institutions, all of which serve to suppress the heir of King George and maintain control over sovereignty and inheritance rights. The actions of Peter and Shiva Salazar are not isolated incidents but part of a larger historical pattern that has continuously used deception, legal maneuvering, and military force to protect elite interests at the expense of rightful heirs. Their actions, both institutionally and personally, reinforce the same mechanisms of suppression that have been used throughout history to attack Christ and his true heirs. This report provides a comprehensive analysis of the collusion between the Salazar lineage and the U.S. government, demonstrating how historical patterns of control persist into modern times. The evidence overwhelmingly supports the claim that the Salazar family has played a central role in the suppression of justice, sovereignty, and divine inheritance. The parallels between biblical betrayal and modern political suppression serve as a warning. The same forces that crucified Christ continue to operate today, and their influence must be exposed.